So one of the most important things that you need to do to keep your Mac secure is to protect it from malware. Malware would be software that you install that is intentionally trying to damage your Mac or your data in some way. Now, commonly to protect a computer from malware, you may think to install other software that works as this protection, anti-malware or antivirus software. But you don't need to do that on a Mac. In fact, it is built into macOS. Let's look at how your Mac protects itself from malware, but also what you need to do to work with that protection to make sure that you never get malware. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure you only download software from sites that you trust. So with a Mac, the only way malware gets on your Mac is if you install it. Malware will try to trick you into doing that by making it look like legitimate software and then you give it permission to install. The software can't install itself. You've got to do it and you have to give it permission to do so. The easiest way to protect yourself from this is to only use the App Store for installing software. If you are very concerned about malware and you need some software, the first place you should look is the App Store. Any app here is actually downloaded from Apple servers. It's not a perfect system, but by passing through Apple's servers and Apple's developer system, it's much less likely that any malware is going to get through. A developer needs to identify themselves, have a valid account. The software itself is checked out to some degree, and if it turns out there is any problem with that software, it's probably going to be found out way before you ever get to download it, and there would be consequences for that developer. That's very different than installing software from the web where you could download from any website, including a website that just appeared today, and there are no checks at all on the developer or the software. So try to stick with the App Store if you can. Not all apps are in the App Store, and if you need to download something from elsewhere, then make sure that you trust the site that you're downloading from. It's not enough to just trust the software itself. For instance, you may completely trust software, say like Photoshop. However, if you're not downloading it from Adobe's website, then you could be getting malware. So just trusting the software, knowing it's reliable software, is not enough. You've got to make sure you're at the right place to get it. Lots of websites will try to trick you into downloading something that's not what it seems. So trust the software and trust the site that you're getting it from. And when in doubt, simply don't download from there. The second thing you want to do is make sure you keep your Mac up to date. macOS will protect you from malware, but if you're out of date, then you may be using a version of macOS that's say a month or a year old and that may not have the most up-to-date protections. If you go into System Settings and then you go to General, go to Software Update, and make sure you have Automatic Updates turned on. Check for updates, download new updates when available, install macOS updates, and install application updates from the App Store as well. And definitely install security responses and system files. Make sure that's all checked and turned on. This way, if there is an issue, you know that your system is up to date and ready to protect your computer against those threats. So how does macOS protect you against those? Well, it has built-in anti-malware software. If you go to this page at Apple's site, you can read more about it if you're interested in the details. Basically, there are systems, most notably one called XProtect, that's built in to macOS Ventura. Not only does it check software as you try to install it, but it will check software periodically while you're using your Mac to make sure it hasn't recently been reported as a threat. So it basically works very much like anti-malware or antivirus software does, but it's built right into the Mac, and of course it's by Apple, which is the largest stakeholder in protecting Macs. Trying to make sure that Macs are malware free is a top priority, of course, as it would be for Apple. So you know they'll be jumping right on the latest information to make sure XProtect is up to date and defending Macs. There's nothing you need to do to install XProtect. It's built in. There's nothing you need to do to run it. It's always running. Just know that it's there and that macOS is taking care of its own security in this regard. So then it is just a matter of you doing your part, making sure you're only downloading software that you trust from a site that you trust, because when you give permission for software to be installed, you're in effect overriding many of the protections that are there by saying that you do want this software, even though that Apple may not know anything about the software or may not know if it's secure. So you want to be very careful with that. Most of the time when people get malware on a computer system, it is because they've downloaded something they shouldn't have trusted from some place they shouldn't have trusted and given it permission to install, thus overriding the security protections that should be preventing it.